This is what? What's sadaqah?
That money?
Did she change it to that? Or is it zakat? If it's zakat, we don't take zakat. If it's sadaqah, then that's something else. You got it? My man. Appreciate you, brother. I think this. Got to put a battery in this?
What?
طيب الشيخ شغله طيب.
What's that? What are you talking about?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا اللهم زدنا علما إنك أنت عليم الحكيم اللهم اجعل هذه المحاضرة حجة لنا لا حجة علينا يا رب العالمين أما بعد. Tonight inshallah ta'ala we're going to speak about Zakat Al-Fitr. What is Zakat Al-Fitr? That's the first question. Say again?
Obligatory charity.
Obligatory? Obligatory what?
Charity.
An obligatory charity. Thank you. What else? It's given once a year. Okay. What else? Why is it called fitr? Huh?
The breaking of the fast.
The breaking of the fast. Right? Has something to do with food, nourishment for the body. Right? So right now, in about a little 45 minutes or so, we're going to be making what? We're going to have what? We're looking for what? What are we having tonight? Iftar. From the word fatara, fitr. Right? So fitr has to do with food or nourishment for the body. So what we're going to do quickly, inshallah ta'ala, and hopefully we have enough time, we're going to cover the subject of Zakat al-Fitr. What is Zakat al-Fitr? And we're going to come from some classical texts in Islam, from a book called Zad al-Mustaqni'. It's the book that we generally pull from a lot of cases. It primarily speaks to the school of thought of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala. So it says, Babu Zakat al-Fitr. Imam al-Hajjawi, this is his book, Zad al-Mustaqni'. He says, well, tajibu ala kulli Muslim. So we're going to break this down into sections. I hope that everybody understands what's going on. If by chance you don't understand, we'll stop, explain as best we can, inshallah, so that we all have a clear picture of what's going on. So he says, tajibu ala kulli Muslim, that Zakat al-Fitr is obligatory for every single Muslim. Zakat al-Fitr is obligatory for every single Muslim. Real quick, if anyone saw the flyer, did anyone see the flyer for tonight's lecture? What did it say on the bottom of it? Anyone know what the flyer said? Did it say something like from the pillars of Islam or something like that? Did anyone see that?
No.
About
this one?
Yeah, it doesn't say that? Oh, alhamdulillah. I think we had one, there was one flyer, we made a mistake. It says something like Zakat al-Fitr, it's like from the pillars of Islam. That zakat right there, Zakat al-Fitr, that's not Islam. So you know, Arkan al-Islam, the pillars of Islam, there are 5. And from those 5, we have zakat. This here Zakat al-Fitr is not generally used or discussed as it relates to zakat that is from the pillars of Islam. The zakat that is from the pillars of Islam is something different. Essentially is 2.5% of a person's wealth that they accumulated for over a year and it reached a certain threshold. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the zakat at the end of Hajj. So then there are 2. Tonight, inshallah, we're only going to be talking about zakat that is associated with Ramadan. The zakat that is associated with Ramadan. Right. So tajib ala kulli Muslim, that this zakat is obligatory for every single Muslim. Fadlahu yawm al-Eid wa laylatah. So what's understood here is that this zakat, it has to do with food, and it's the additional food that a person has from one day and one night. So what that means is, let's say in your house you have enough food for today and tomorrow. You have extra, if you will. If that's your case, then in this point, you are obliged to pay Zakat al-Fitr. If you're a person who does not have the necessary food for the next one day and one night, then Zakat al-Fitr is not obligatory upon you. Then Zakat al-Fitr is not obligatory upon you. Right. It says, Sa'a an kutihi wa kuti iyalihi. So now we're going to talk about what is a sa'a. This here is a sa'a. Well, I'm sorry, this is a mud. 4 of these is equivalent to 1 sa'a. And what that means is, if you fill this up, this here is a sa' or a mud nabawi, meaning this has an ijazah that goes back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, right? What this means is, essentially, it's 2 handfuls cupped together like this, 4 of them. So if you have 2 handfuls and put it inside one of these things, right? This should fill this up. This is 1 mud. If you do this 4 times, this is a sa'a. Okay, does that make sense? So then, towards the end of this, we're going to get into the measurements, etc., because a lot of people think, how much does, what do I have to pay, etc. We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so then the zakat that's obligatory is 1 sa'a, meaning 4 2 handfuls together inside of whatever you want to put it in. This is considered 1 sa'a. Yeah. It says, وَحَوَائِجِهِ الْأَصْلِيَّةِ, meaning if a person has additional, then they have to pay the zakat. وَلَا يَمْنَعُهَا الدَّيْنِ. If a person has a debt, let's say you owe somebody money, and you say, I can't pay zakat al-fitr because I owe such and such money. This does not remove the obligation of you paying zakat al-fitr, unless that person that you owe money to, they come to you and say, give me that additional money that you owe me now. I need it now, right? But it says, فَيُخْرَجْ. So how do you pay it? Who do you pay it for? So the first thing is, فَيُخْرَجُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. The first thing is that you pay the zakat al-fitr on yourself, for yourself first, right? It says عَنْ نَفْسِهِ وَعَنْ مُسْلِمٍ يَمُونَهُ. The next one is on a Muslim that you take care of. A Muslim that you take care of. So that means in your house, let's say you have 5 people in your house, 3 Muslims, 2 non-Muslims. Who are you obligated to pay zakat al-fitr for? Huh? The 3 Muslims. The 3 Muslims, right? So, all right. So a person has to pay zakat on those 3 Muslims, right? A person may say, well, why can't I pay it on the non-Muslims that I take care of? If it's people that I take care of them. So the scholars of Islam, they address that and they say, La talzamu fitratum min yamunahu min al-kuffar. That it is not obligated for a person to pay zakat al-fitr on the people that you take care of that are kuffar or non-Muslim. لِأَنَّهَا طُهْرَةٌ لِمُخْرَجْ عَنْهُ. This is because the zakat al-fitr is a purification for the ones that you are taking care of. So for example, if you have wife, children, etc., and you pay zakat for them, this is a purification for them. The scholars of Islam say the purification for the non-Muslim is not zakat, rather it's them accepting Islam. It's for them accepting Islam. So then, if a person asks you, why can't I pay zakat on my non-Muslim that I take care of? The zakat for them is for them to take shahada. For them to become Muslim, that is the ultimate purification for them. And there's no purification other than that as it relates to them. And the law knows best. But it says, you are obligated to pay zakat al-fitr for someone, even if you just take care of them in the month of Ramadan. What does that mean? Let's say, for example, you have a cousin or a niece or a nephew that's Muslim and they're coming from out of town. They say, listen, uncle, we want to spend the month of Ramadan with you. So they come stay with you. They sleep with you. You pay for them that whole month. Now it's obligatory for you to pay zakat for them during the month of Ramadan. Does that make sense? Huh? Like it says, فَإِنْ عَجَزَ عَنْ بَعْضٍ بَدَأَ بِنَفْسِهِ. So let's say, for example, you have 10 people you're responsible for, 5 people you're responsible for, but you don't have the means to pay zakat for everyone. You only have enough for some. So the first thing it says, وَبَدَأَ بِنَفْسِهِ. So the first person that he is responsible for is paying for himself. All right? The first person he's responsible for is paying for himself. Once he pays for himself, then if he has something left, who's the next person after that? The wife. The next person after that is his wife. Then after that, who's after that? They say raqiq, but we don't have raqiqs, right? We don't have servants, etc. So after that, فَأُمِّهِ. The next one is his mother. Then after his mother comes his father. Then after his father comes his son, his children. So pay attention. If you have a limited amount of money for Zakat al-Fitr, and you only have enough for yourself or 3 or 4 people, the first person is yourself, your spouse, your mother, your father, then your children. And then after that, whoever falls into the category. Yes.
And so if the parents is under your care, right?
Yes, if they're under your care. Yes, if these are people that you're taking care of, for sure. Good question, right? Yes.
You said son. So is that the order or
That's the order of a zakat.
so after the father, you said son specifically. Is it his children?
It says for waladihi. When they say waladihi, it means when they use the term son, it means your children in general, depending on the context. But here in the text here, it means your children for waladihi. And then after that, it says for aqrab fil mirath. After your son, then it says the closest person to you in your lineage. Now, when they say lineage in Islam, it's defined as those who will inherit from you once you die. All right. So you might feel like, well, my aunt's the closest person to me. Perhaps that may be true, but Islamically, she's not. Let's assume your aunt is Muslim and she's the closest person to you. However, it doesn't apply when it comes to Islamic inheritance. And Islamic inheritance is very important, and it's an issue that should not be neglected. Unfortunately, a lot of times Muslims pass away, and this issue here does not get a lot of mention. In fact, I see people pass away, Muslims, and no one discusses the inheritance. In fact, a brother mentioned to me this morning about he wrote a will, and in his will he said, I don't want to leave my wife anything. He has 2 wives. Said, my one wife, I don't want to leave her anything. I don't like her. My kids. I said, whoa, this is not Islam. Islam doesn't work that way. You don't have a choice to say whether I want to leave my wife something or not. That's not your choice. It's an obligation. All right? It's an obligation, etc. In any event, this is definitely something that we have to speak about in more detail, inshallah. So it says, وَعَلَيْهِمْ وَيُسْتَحَبُّ عَنَ الْجَنِينَ. Now, let's say, for example, a woman is pregnant. Your wife is pregnant during that time. Do you have to pay zakat on the child, the unborn child? Yes or no? No. But it's recommended that you do so. And this is due to the narration of Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. It's not obligatory, but it is recommended to pay zakat al-fitr for your child that is unborn, for your unborn child. Additionally, now he mentions some exceptions. It says, well, what if some family members, let's say it says, وَلَا تَجِبُ لِنَاشِزٍ. If a person has a wife that is disrespectful, right? If a man has a wife that is disrespectful, she disobeys Allah, etc. In this case, it is not obligatory for him to pay zakat for her. Not only is it not obligatory for him to pay zakat for her, but he doesn't even have to spend on her. If a man has a wife that is disrespectful to him, etc., and sinful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then in our town it's considered maintenance, right? I don't even like that word maintenance. Where did that come from? Maintenance. That's not even a Shari'i legislative word. That's not even a word that is used in Islam. Maintenance. Maintenance, you maintain your vehicle, take your oil change, etc. When you talk about a spouse, you don't say, oh, it's maintenance. Right? Allah, I don't even know where that came from, where it started. طيب. It says, وَمَنْ لَزِمَتْ غَيْرُهُ فِطْرَتُهُ فَأَخْرَجَ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ بِغَيْرِ إِذْنِهِ أَجْزَأَتْ. So let's say, for example, a brother has a spouse, his wife, and he usually pays for his wife's zakat every year, and she just paid for herself. Is it permissible for her to do that? Or the children pay zakat for themselves, for zakat al-fitr? Is that okay for them to do? Yes. There's no harm in that. If one were to do that, there's no harm in that. So when does zakat al-fitr become obligatory? It says, وَتَجِبُ بِغُرُوبِ الشَّمْسِ لَيْلَةَ الْفِطْر. So let's say tomorrow is Eid. Let's assume that tomorrow is Eid, right? As soon as Maghrib comes in, that's when Eid is started, correct? Now, we're assuming that tomorrow is what? Right, we're assuming that tomorrow is Eid. Soon as Maghrib comes in, right? As soon as Maghrib comes in, at that point in time, paying zakat al-fitr becomes obligatory. Paying zakat al-fitr at that time becomes wajib, meaning it's due right now. When we say wajib here, we mean that it is actually due right now at this point, right? طيب. Any questions about that? طيب. It says, فَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ بَعْدَهُ أَوْ مَلَكَ عَبْدًا تَزَوَّجَ أَوْ وُلِدَ لَهُ وَلَمْ تَلْزَمُ فِطْرَتُهُ. So let's say, for example, Maghrib comes in right now. Today now starts the Eid. At that point in time, someone accepts Islam, someone gets married, a child is, all these things take place as soon as the sun sets and Eid comes in. If you're paying zakat, is it obligatory for you to pay zakat when that person now, meaning that wife you just married, when the sun went down? No, it's not. Why is it not?
You weren't married prior to.
Because you weren't married prior to the time for the Eid. Is that clear? Did I lose anybody? Did I lose you, Sheikh?
No.
You sure? All right. If I didn't, I lost you?
You know, you kind of mentioned that when you said if the nephew comes during the month of Ramadan.
Yes. Good, but I just wanted to reiterate it, right? So let's say, for example, the month of Ramadan, you're thinking about getting married, and then soon as you don't realize that tomorrow is the Eid, you think you still got an extra day, right? So Maghrib comes in, as soon as Maghrib comes in, you get married. At that point in time, you think, all right, I'm gonna just pay zakat for her and everybody else left. That wife at that point in time, you are not obligated to pay zakat for her. However, let's say right before Maghrib, you married her, right before Maghrib, and then Maghrib came in, now it's obligatory for you to what? Pay zakat on her. Likewise, if you had a child right before Maghrib came in at that time, it's obligatory. Before we said it was what? Recommended. Before we said it was recommended. Now, once the child is born and it's before Maghrib, and we're assuming that tomorrow's the Eid, and it's before Maghrib, now it's obligatory to pay zakat on that child. If it's after Maghrib when that child is born, then it is what? We don't have to pay zakat on that child. It would only be recommended. I think I lost y'all. Huh?
It's cut and dry.
It's cutting to you.
All right, I'm sorry.
It's cut and dry, inshallah. Thank you. All right. So it's permissible. Now we said it's obligatory to pay zakat al-fitr as soon as the Eid comes in. However, it's permissible. Now there's a difference between obligatory and permissibility, right? It's permissible to pay zakat al-fitr 2 days before the Eid, but it becomes obligatory to pay zakat al-fitr as soon as the Eid comes in, meaning that Maghrib. Is that clear? Again, it's recommended, or not even recommended, it's permissible to pay zakat al-fitr 2 days before the Eid. As soon as the Eid comes in, it becomes obligatory. that permissibility now changes to obligatory as soon as the Eid comes in, as soon as Maghrib comes in. طيب. طيب. It says, وَيَوْمَ الْعِيدِ قَبْلَ الصَّلَاةِ أَفْضَلُ. Now, what is the best time to pay the zakat? The best time to pay it. When is that? Before the prayer. Before the prayer. So the best time to pay zakat al-fitr is right now. You pray Fajr on the morning of the Eid. You pray Fajr. You're getting ready and you're leaving out to go to the Salat. On your way to the Salat, leaving out, that's the best time to pay the zakat al-fitr. However, I don't encourage people here to do that unless you know someone that can take it. In the land of the Muslims, it's very easy to go pray Fajr, get yourself together, leave out with your family to go pray the Eid, and you can drop off your zakat on the way because there are people waiting for it. Unfortunately, we don't have that situation here. It says, وَتُقْرَ فِي بَاقِيهِ. It is hated to pay the zakat after the salat. And if a person makes it up after that day, then they are sinful. Right. So now we're going to talk about what do we pay in zakat al-fitr? What is it? Right? It says, وَيَجِبُ السَّاعُ مِنْ بُرٍ. The first thing that is mentioned, and this is from authentic hadith, the first thing that is mentioned is bur, which is wheat. So a person can pay wheat for zakat al-fitr. The second one is sha'ir. Sha'ir is like barley. You can also pay barley for zakat al-fitr. The next thing is daqiq. Daqiq hima is flour. You can pay zakat al-fitr in flour. And we brought some flour here so people can say, this is flour, right? Easy. And the reason why I brought this here because I want to show you guys something. We're gonna look at something in a minute, right? The next one is sawiq hima. Sawiq hima is fine flour. It's still flour, right? The next thing we can pay for zakat is dates. Do we have any dates in the back? No. I need a group of dates. Matter of fact, put some dates in here for me, please, inshallah. I want to show you guys something so you see what we're talking about. The next one is zabib, right? It's olives, right? Form of olives or lebanon. وفإن عدم الخمسة أجزأ كل حب وثمر يقتات. If you don't have those things that we just mentioned, then many of the scholars say whatever food from those people. So because of that, then we also have rice, right? And we're going to talk about this too, rice. So, yes.
So you said food of the people. So can meat be acceptable also?
And I'm about to tell you why. Good question. The brother said, if it's food of the people, can it be meat? Can you give meat for zakat al-fitr? Yes or no? Yeah, but it's a reason why. We can say no. We got somebody who can fill it up. All right. Don't put the sticky ones. All right. You know? So meat, right? Yes.
Maybe you already get to it, but does it have to be like a non-perishable food?
Perfect. The food has to be non-perishable. So if you want to give away food, then it's a staple food from a particular group of people, right? It has to be non-perishable. So it says, وَلَا يُجْزِئُ khubz, right? You cannot give khubz bread. Can you give someone zakat in bread? No. Why not? Because bread goes bad. You can't give zakat in bread, right? The next thing is kayl wal-ittikhar. So it's two things that you have to be able to measure it. Whatever you're going to give away for zakat al-fitr, it has to be measurable, right? Meaning we have to be able to know the amount of it. And we'll talk about measurements. When we say measurable, do we mean weight? When it comes to zakat al-fitr, is weight important? What's the most important thing when it comes to measuring something for zakat al-fitr? So what is that? What type of measurement is this? We put our hands together and whatever fills within our hands, what is that called? What is that? Volume. We are measuring volume. For those that don't know, volume is something that fills up a space, right? It doesn't matter how much it weighs. It fills up space. I'll give you an example. This is why he wants to get dates, right? If you put dates in a mud like this, and you right now this is filled with rice. Rice is going to be heavier than what? Dates, right? Even flour. Rice may even be heavier than flour. Or maybe you had beans. Rice may be heavier than beans. So then, when we're measuring to give Zakat al-Fitr, what we're not doing is focusing on weight. I know that everywhere you look online and everyone says Zakat al-Fitr is how many pounds of rice? We talked about that earlier, right? How many pounds of rice?
6 to 7 pounds.
6 to 7 pounds of rice, right? So that means, according to your mind, according to how you think right now, right? If we say that
6 to 7 or 67?
no, 6 to 7, not 67. 67, no. But listen, according to what you said, right? If we say that it is 6 to 7 pounds, so what about if I wanted to get dates? Would I have to buy 6 to 7 pounds of dates still? What about beans? Do I buy 6 to 7 pounds of beans? What about flour? Do I buy 6 to 7 pounds of flour? Right? How would you estimate that?
I was going on. It's a hadith that says you give the 6 to 7 pounds of wheat, oat, or
There is no hadith, Akhi, that says 6 to 7 pounds. There's no hadith that says that. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is a sa'ah. And Nabi ﷺ, he said Zakat al-Fitr is a sa'ah. What is a sa'ah? You see this here? This here is it's called the Mudd al-Nabawi, right? So this here, what this is the measurement of the hands of the Prophet ﷺ folded together like this. Both of the hands of the Prophet ﷺ put together like this is equal to this. Okay? So if you're going to pay Zakat al-Fitr, you're going to measure the volume. What can you amass in both of your hands put together 4 times? 4 times. This is considered a sa'ah. So you're going to do 1 scoop like this with both hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 sa'ah. I highly recommend the brothers and sisters here, when you pay Zakat al-Fitr, if you're going to buy rice, if you're going to buy staple foods, take your family, bring them together, pull out a spread on the floor, open it up, dump it out, dump everything out, right? And once you dump it all out, take both hands together, 4 scoops, and put it into a bag. That would be officially considered 1 sa'ah, and there's no difference of opinion as it relates to that. Does that make sense? And you can use freezer bags and write your kids' names on it. Boom, this is 1 bag for Fulana. Take with your family, do the 4, and get into the habit. It's sunnah. Take your time and do it. Take your time and don't just go to the store, buy a whole bunch of stuff, and then drop it off at somebody. Alhamdulillah, pay my zakat. Nah, it's ibadah. It's worship. Take your time, sit down with your family, go over it. Right? Go over it. Were you able to feel it? All right, let me see that, inshallah. So right now, how many scoops? 4 scoops. 1, 2, 3, 4.
For the most.
All right, so here. Yes.
4 scoops 2 times. Right?
No. It's 2 hands together with 4 scoops of 2 hands. So you go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to come here. Hold this. This is filled with dates and this is filled with rice. Are they the same? What's heavier?
Right. That is.
The rice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we have dates in here, even though these are heavy dates, right? We have dates and rice. Let's say you wanted to give somebody Zakat al-Fitr and give them dates. You must do the same thing, the 4 scoops. If you have any type of staple food, it's 4 scoops. 4 scoops with 2 hands together. Does that make sense? So then.
So listen, what did it say about what the people like?
So what the people like is also good, right? So they're called staple foods. Staple foods are what the people
So
eat.
people here don't like beets and rice.
So whatever is a staple food. When we say staple food, it's food that people in that area eat, right? As long as you can measure it. And when we say measurables, we're talking about what? No, measurables. When we mention, what are we talking about when we say measurables? What are we measuring? Volume and what? And we're measuring volume, and it can be stored away. It was two parts. So when we say non-perishable, we need two things to be considered. The first thing is that it is measurable, and we don't mean weight. We're talking about measuring what? Volume. Is everybody clear on volume?
Make it clear.
All right. Volume is the amount of something that can occupy a space, right? So if we have this here, whatever you can fit in here, this is the volume. Whatever, we're not talking about how much it weighs. It's the capacity of space. Does that make sense? All right. So when we're measuring for,
Like, some people like,
let me finish, Sheikh. I will get back to that. All right. So when we say measurables, right, we have to be able to fill a space, fill this space. When you're using your hands, you're filling this space. Okay. You're filling this space. Whatever can fit in here with both hands, this is volume. You do this 4 times, and this is equivalent to a sa'a. So back to what the brother mentioned earlier, there is no hadith that says 6 or 7 pounds. Right? You're not going to find a hadith that says that. The hadith is measured through sa'a, yes. So this right here is 2 hands of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's going to vary from person to person, right? But this is 2 hands of the Prophet ﷺ. Like, any questions about that? Any questions? So then there are 2 things to consider when it comes to giving out Zakat al-Fitr. Is that they have to be measurable. Number 1, they have to be measurable. And number 2, you have to be able to store it away. So storable and measurable. Those are the 2 key components. And the third component is that it has to be a staple food. It has to be a staple food. The next thing, it says, وَيَجُوزُ أَنْ يُعْتِيَ الْجَمَاعَةَ مَا تَلْزِمُ الْوَاحِدِ وَالْعَكْسِ. All right. So let's say, for example, I have enough zakat to give to 1 person, right? But it's 5 people that need zakat. I can take that zakat in theoretically, and spread it to the whole group of people. Does that make sense? So let's say, for example, I have enough zakat for 1 person. It's 1 sa'a, right? Are you guys with me? I have 1 sa'a of zakat that's mine. I'm only paying for myself. I see 5 people that need it. I can take this zakat and divide it up to those 5 people. Is that clear? Right. Let's say I have, so that's what the first thing the author mentioned, is permissible to give a whole group that which is sufficient for 1 person. The next one is, if I have enough for 10 people, I have enough zakat for 10 people. And I'm looking, who can I give this to? And I see 1 person that's needy. I can give that 1 person the amount of zakat for 10 people. That is also permissible. So then, it's permissible for us to give zakat that is for 1 person to a whole group. And the opposite is also true. I can take I have enough zakat for 10 people, and I can give it to 1 person. Is that clear? However, that's not preferable, but it's permissible to do. It's permissible to do.
break it down again.
What part?
Say it again.
All right. So you can give whatever the zakat that you have for 1 person. Let's say I have 1 zakat. I'm paying zakat for myself, right? I'm paying zakat for myself. The zakat that I have, I can give it to 10 people. I can break it down and give it to 10 people. Or I have to pay zakat for 10 people, but instead of giving it to 10 people, I can give it to 1 person. I can give it to 1 person. Does that make sense? I'll explain to you later, inshallah. All right. Anyone else have any questions about that?
So we're not able
Yes.
to do that. You said food stuff, like
It has to be rice.
It doesn't have to be rice.
So it could be beans.
It could be beans. It could be whatever staple foods, as long as it is non-perishable. So these are so when you go to the store, if you're going to go to the store, you say, I need to buy some zakat, right? Keep these things in your mind. It's food that everybody eats. That's number one. You can weigh it, meaning you can measure it. It's measurable, the volume. That's number two. It can be stored away, meaning it's non-perishable. Is number three. If you can look at those things and keep those things in mind when you go to the store, you should be fine. You can buy lentils, for example, right? People may eat lentils. Yes. Spaghetti. So apply the logic that we just used, right? So is it perishable? You can no. Is it perishable? No. Right?
Dissolve, means about perishable, right?
Yeah, you can store it away, right? Can you weigh it? Can you weigh it in volume?
No.
You probably break it. Yeah. So mumkin, according to that theory, it's possible. Allahu alam, right? Allah knows best. Yes.
Ramen noodles. We all eat them.
Well, so even with ramen noodles, you have to take the same concept as it applies to the spaghetti, right? But the problem with that is, how are you going to measure that? You're going to open up the pack of ramen noodles, squeeze it up, and put it in the bag, and then who's going to want it, right? No, but how are you going to measure it? How are you going to be? What's an efficient way of measuring it, right? And if anybody did buy rice and you wanted to put it in Ziploc bags, obviously you want to use gloves, huh? Make it clean and thorough as much as possible. Yes.
I want some
Grits. Grits, yeah. Same thing. Grits, oatmeal. People eat oatmeal. Right? So what I'm saying is there are options. We have options, right? Staple food. Now, it can get to a point. Let's say, for example, you experiment with it. You open up whatever. Let's say you open up rice and you do the 4 scoops and you say, you know what, this 4 scoops, based on your own assessment, is 4 pounds, 4 or 5 pounds, 6 pounds. Then you know that, all right, well, 6 pounds of rice. If I'm buying rice, then this is what it is. However, if I'm buying dates, I know I might need 3 pounds of dates. If I'm buying beans, I know I might need 7 pounds of beans based on putting both of your hands together. Does that make sense? Now, here's the thing. If it's anything over that amount, then that is sadaqah. It's charity that you're giving. It's not obligatory. Does that make sense? Right. Inshallah, that's all that we have for Zakat al-Fitr. We'll open up the floor for some questions, inshallah. Yes.
So let's say it's a homeless shelter where the Kufar and the Muslims frequent.
So a homeless shelter where the Muslims and non-Muslims frequent. Yes.
Can Zakat al-Fitr be dropped off there?
Can Zakat, who's going to be in charge of it? La yaqi. Don't play around with your Zakat. This is worship. It could be a shelter. There may be Muslims and non-Muslims there at the shelter. But if you drop it off to the center, how do you know the Muslims are going to receive it? Right? This is your worship. Brothers and sisters in Islam, when it comes to our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to see it through as best we can. We have to see it through as best we can, right? We have places here. How do they do it? So we have places that accept Zakat al-Fitr here in Philadelphia. The place that we recommend, please do not drop Zakat al-Fitr off the 4075 Lancaster Avenue. Malish. Please do not drop off Zakat al-Fitr to 4075 Lancaster Avenue. We do not accept it. We do not accept responsibility for it. If you drop it off here, it'll be there the next day after the Eid, and we don't want you to get mad at us. We do not pass out Zakat al-Fitr. However, if you need help, we have help for you. Masjid al-Wasatiyah. May Allah reward those brothers over there. They have been doing it for years. They have a really nice, decent system there at Masjid al-Wasatiyah. They have the people in the community in the areas, and that's not too far from here. They take the zakat. They have a whole team of brothers that work there. They pass out the zakat and they ensure that the people get it before the zakat is due, meaning before the prayer. So if anyone wants to drop off zakat al-fitr, please send it to Masjid al-Wasatiyah. They take it. Also, do not drop off your zakat al-mal here either. We're not set up to receive it at this point in time. There has to be a lot to discuss before we can open up those doors. But jazakumullahu khair. Yes.
Somebody mentioned that Tuesday is the last day. You want to drop off the
Okay, mashallah. So the brother said Tuesday, that's tomorrow, right? Mashallah. He said Tuesday is the last day to drop off, according to this brother here, not according to me. What's your name, Mike? I'm sorry. Sheikh Rashid here. So he wants to say that Sheikh Rashid said that, well, Satya said that the last day for taking zakat al-fitr is on Tuesday. It's on Tuesday, yes.
So there's a situation I had to experience. What if a man places his wife in iddah?
Good question.
And
Do you still have to pay zakat al-fitr on her?
yes,
Perfect. A brother asked a really good question. He said, what if a man places his wife in iddah? Does he still have to pay zakat al-fitr on her? It's a good question.
does the outcome
Shit. No. Stop hiding. What's the answer to that question? Huh? You said until the divorce is final? All right, so here's a roundabout.
get divorced?
If he depends on what divorce is. Let's say it was the first divorce, right? Allah says al-talaqu marratain, that there are two divorces. Two divorces? Yeah, there are two divorces in which a man can take his wife back. The third divorce he can't, right? So, with two divorces, if a man divorces his wife, it's the first divorce. Technically, if he dies, let's say he divorces his wife, all right? And while she's in iddah, he dies. He doesn't like her. He can't stand this woman. He hates her guts. He puts her in iddah, right? This is important, brothers. This is very important. He puts her in iddah. He hates her. He can't stand her guts. A week later, he passes away. Does she get any inheritance from him? Yes or no? Everyone's quiet. Does she inherit from him? She's divorced. What do you mean? You said a Long Island? Are you married? Oh, all right. Well, before you get married, you need to find out. Huh?
Okay, perhaps. Okay.
No, there's no perhaps. Does she inherit? Yes or no? Yes, she inherits. Why does she inherit? Because technically she is still his wife until her iddah period is over. Until her iddah period is over. That's number one. Number two, if he divorced his wife, what would be a reason why a man would divorce his wife? Maybe he just doesn't want to be married to her anymore. But she was a good woman. Maybe she did everything she was supposed to do, and he's still spending on her, and he still cares for her. Then in that case, it may be obligatory for him to still pay zakat al-fitr on her. Allah. The next case, he divorces his wife, right? And she's disrespectful. She doesn't listen to him, etc. In this case, it would not be obligatory for him to spend zakat al-fitr on her, even if he was married to her. So let's say, for example, if a brother has a wife that he did not divorce, the ulama say that even if he has a wife that he didn't divorce and she's disrespectful to him and she disobeys Allah, he doesn't have to spend on her. So then what about a wife that's divorced? Make sense? Is that clear? It's not clear? The sister said no. So then the answer is not a cookie cutter answer, right? A lot of things in Islam is not black and white. It's possible for a man to divorce a wife and she didn't do anything wrong. She may have been the best wife ever, but for whatever reason, he just can't handle that responsibility. Is that realistic? Yes. Okay. In this case, she has an iddah period. In her iddah period, he still spends on her. He still takes care of her. He still provides everything for her. Then in this case, he will be responsible for paying zakat on her. Why is that? If you remember to the beginning part of what we studied in this, we said that he is responsible for paying zakat for anyone he is taking care of. Remember we said that? Any money is taken, and technically she is still part of his family until that final divorce. That's one scenario. We have another scenario is that he's married to a sister. We're going to talk about the wife first. He's married to a sister. The sister is very disrespectful. She doesn't listen to her husband. She disobeys the law. If this is still his wife, he does not have to pay Zakat al-Fitr on her. It is not obligated for him to spend Zakat al-Fitr on her, and he's still married to her. So then what about a woman that he divorces and have the same attributes? Is he going to pay Zakat al-Fitr on her? No. Does that make sense? All right. We'll have that in this, Allahu Alam. This is based, yes.
Another one that actually.
Yeah, you can ask that brother right there, man.
What about the marriage where the man and the woman, they agree to split the expenses, or in some cases the woman takes on more of the expenses, and so in this case perhaps the husband's under the wife's care.
So in a case where the husband is under the wife's care, Allahu Alam. I don't know, actually. I'm not even, because that's Allahu Alam. I don't know. Maybe the wife is paying for Zakat. That means we're in a bad situation, brother. That's our condition. We're in a bad state of affairs. I'm not prepared to answer that one. You talk to the brother over there. He can deal with that. Any other questions, inshallah, before we get ready to break fast, inshallah? Any other questions? خلاص سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته